Hello guys, welcome to Monkey DFIC. So in this video, we will see what if Luffy fought Shanks. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Echo of Freedom. The thousand Sunny cut through the waves like she was born to do it, spray kicking up along her lion figurehead as Luffy sat cross-legged in his special seat. His straw hat, the one Shanks had given him all those years ago, fluttered in the wind, secured by the string under his chin. "Oi, Nami! Are we there yet?" Luffy called out, bouncing slightly with that boundless energy that never seemed to dim. Nami glanced up from her maps, orange hair whipping across her face. "For the 15th time, Luffy, no. We'll reach Whisper Island by tomorrow morning if the weather holds." Luffy groaned dramatically, flopping backward until he was dangling upside down off his perch. "But I'm so bored. And hungry. Sanji. Food." From the galley door, Sanji appeared with a tray of sandwiches. "Here, you bottomless pit. Try to make these last more than 30 seconds. Luffy's arm stretched across the deck, snatching half the sandwiches before Sanji could even set the tray down. He stuffed 3 into his mouth at once, mumbling something incomprehensible through the food. Robin looked up from her book with an amused smile. "Perhaps our captain would be less restless if we reviewed what we know about our destination." "Yeah." Luffy sprayed crumbs as he swallowed. "Tell me about the mystery thing again." The crew gathered around as Robin closed her book. They'd been sailing with purpose since that fateful encounter 3 days ago, the dying words of an old man who'd once sailed with Gold Roger himself. "According to Silver's Rayleigh's information and the man we met at the last port, Whisper Island contains a temple housing an ancient artifact," Robin explained. "Legends call it the Echo Shell. It's said to amplify the ability to hear the voice of all things." Luffy's eyes sparkled. "And that means I could talk to even more animals? Like all the Sea Kings at once?" "Potentially more than that," Robin said, her voice taking on that serious edge that made everyone pay attention. "The text suggests it could even control them, or worse." Zoro, who had been napping against the mast, opened his one good eye. "And that's why the world government's suddenly gone crazy trying to find it." "Not just them," Nami added, spreading out a chart on the deck. "At least 3 pirate emperors have fleet movements in this direction. Including, red-haired Shanks," Luffy finished, suddenly serious. His hand reached up to touch the brim of his straw hat. Usopp's eyes widened. "Your hero. The guy who gave you that hat. Why would he be after this thing?" Luffy shrugged, but there was tension in his shoulders that his crew rarely saw. "Dunno. But if everyone wants it, must be something pretty amazing." "Or dangerous," Jinbe interjected, his deep voice carrying across the deck. "The ability to communicate with or control Sea Kings would upset the balance of power in the world." Frankie struck his signature pose. "Super dangerous. But nothing the thousand Sunny and her crew can't handle." Brook laughed his distinctive, "Yahohoho," before adding, "Perhaps Shanks-san merely wishes to ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands." Chopper looked worried. "But Luffy, what if you have to fight Shanks for it?" The question hung in the air. Everyone knew the significance of Luffy's promise, to return the straw hat only when he'd become a great pirate. Luffy's face split into that unstoppable grin. "Then I'll fight him. I'm way stronger now. I can finally show him how far I've come." Before anyone could respond, the ship's transponder snail started ringing. Nami picked it up. "Straw Hat Pirates." A serious voice crackled through. "This is Vice Admiral Garp." "Grandpa?" Luffy's head snapped around. "Listen carefully. The waters around Whisper Island are crawling with world government ships. This isn't just the Marines, this is Cypher Pole, this is the Gorosei taking direct interest." "What's your point, old man?" Luffy asked, snatching the receiver from Nami. My point, you disrespectful brat, is that whatever you think you're chasing isn't worth it. The echo shell is too dangerous, even for you. Luffy frowned. How'd you know what we're looking for? A pause. Because I just finished talking to red-haired Shanks. The crew froze. He contacted me specifically to warn you off. He's going there to destroy it, Luffy. Not to use it. To make sure nobody can. Luffy's expression darkened. That's stupid. Nobody gets to decide what other people do with their freedom. This isn't about freedom. It's about, the connection abruptly cut off as a massive wave rocked the ship. What the hell was that? Zoro was on his feet, hand on his swords. Usopp pointed with a shaking finger from his lookout position. Marines. 3 ships, coming in fast. They're trying to stop us from reaching the island, Robin said calmly. Luffy cracked his knuckles, his previous confusion replaced by determination. Guess we gotta show they can't. The marine ships opened fire, cannonballs arcing through the air toward the Sunny. Luffy inflated himself into a balloon, bouncing several back toward their source. Franky manned the Jeian cannon, while Zoro sliced incoming projectiles with practiced ease. General Franky. Franky shouted, disappearing below deck only to emerge moments later in his mecha suit. He leapt from the ship, landing on the nearest marine vessel. They're not holding back, Jinbe observed as he manipulated the water currents to shield the Sunny. Those aren't regular marines, they're wearing CP-0 uniforms. Sanji launched himself skyward. I'll handle the one on the left. His legs ignited with flames as he descended onto the second ship. The battle was fierce but brief. The Straw Hats had grown too powerful to be stopped by anything less than an admiral. As the last marine ship retreated, smoke pouring from its damaged hull, the crew regrouped on the Sunny. Everyone okay? Luffy asked, barely winded. Chopper was already patching up minor wounds. Nothing serious. But this is just the beginning, isn't it? Nami nodded grimly. If CP-0 is involved, they'll keep coming. We need to reach that island fast. Full speed ahead. Luffy ordered, pointing forward. I wanna see this mystery shell before Shanks destroys it. The Sunny surged forward, her soldier dock system engaged for maximum speed. As night fell, the crew took turns keeping watch, the tension palpable. Luffy sat on the figurehead, unusually quiet. Robin approached, standing beside him. You're troubled about potentially facing Shanks, she observed. Luffy didn't deny it. I always thought when I met him again, it would be different. Not fighting against each other. Sometimes paths diverge unexpectedly. Luffy nodded. I promised I'd return his hat when I became a great pirate. I'm not there yet. Robin smiled gently. Perhaps this confrontation is part of that journey. Maybe. Luffy touched the hat again. But I don't get why he wants to destroy it without even seeing what it can do. That's not giving people freedom. Freedom always has limits, Luffy. Even you recognize that. He frowned. Yeah, but those limits should be about not hurting others. This is different. Their conversation was interrupted by Usopp's shout from the crow's nest. Island spotted. And, ships. Lots of them. Dawn broke as they approached Whisper Island. True to Usopp's warning, the waters surrounding it were crowded with vessels, marine ships keeping their distance, smaller pirate crews hovering uncertainly, and one distinctive ship with crimson sails that made Luffy's heart race. Red Force, he murmured. Shanks is already here. The island itself rose from the ocean like a fist, rocky cliffs giving way to dense jungle. At its center, a mountain peak thrust skyward, wreathed in mist. The temple should be there, near the summit, Robin pointed. Nami studied the currents. There's a hidden cove on the eastern side. We can anchor there and approach by land. Luffy nodded. Let's go. They navigated carefully past the other ships, using Nami's knowledge of weather patterns to cloak themselves in a sudden fog. The Sunny slipped into the secluded cove, and the crew prepared to disembark. Frankie, Usopp, Brook, stay with the ship, Luffy ordered. Everyone else, we're going to find that temple. As they made their way through the dense jungle, Luffy felt a strange sensation, a distant humming that seemed to resonate in his bones rather than his ears. You hear that? He asked. Jinbe nodded. The voice of all things grows stronger here. The echo shell must be amplifying it already. It's giving me the creeps, Nami muttered, staying close to Robin. They'd been hiking for an hour when Zoro suddenly raised his hand for silence. We're not alone. A twig snapped to their right. Luffy whirled, arms stretching back, ready to punch. I wouldn't do that if I were you, a familiar voice called out. A figure stepped from the shadows, red hair blazing in a shaft of sunlight. Ben Beckman stood beside him, rifle resting casually on his shoulder. Shanks. Luffy's arm snapped back, his face breaking into an automatic smile before he remembered why they were there. Shanks grinned, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Luffy. You've grown. The two captains stood facing each other, separated by years and purpose. Shanks looked much as Luffy remembered, the 3 scars across his left eye, the straw hat now replaced by Shanks' own black one, the single arm. But there was something in his stance that spoke of power far beyond what Luffy had known as a child. You're here for the Echo Shell, Shanks said. Not a question. Luffy nodded. And you want to destroy it? I do. Shanks took a step forward. And I need you to let me. Why? Luffy demanded. Why not let people decide for themselves how to use it? Shanks sighed. Because some powers aren't meant for this world. The Echo Shell doesn't just let you hear the voice of all things, it lets you command it. Imagine someone controlling every sea king in the ocean, or worse. So what? I'd stop them if they used it wrong. You can't be everywhere at once, Luffy. Shanks' voice hardened. Some things are too dangerous to exist. Luffy crossed his arms. That's not your choice to make. Everyone deserves the freedom to follow their dream. Even if that dream destroys the world. I'd protect it. Shanks shook his head. Your faith in yourself is admirable. But this isn't about strength. It's about responsibility. I am responsible. Luffy shot back. That's why I need to see this shell thing first, before anyone decides what happens to it. The tension between them built as they stared each other down. Neither moved. The jungle itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the ground shook. What the? Zoro steadied himself against a tree. A tremendous explosion echoed from the direction of the mountain. Smoke billowed from its peak. The temple, Robin gasped. Someone's attacking it. Shanks cursed. The world government must have sent their agents ahead. He turned to Beckman. Get the crew up there now. Luffy didn't wait. Let's go, he shouted, launching himself through the trees with his rubber powers, leaving his crew scrambling to follow. Shanks watched him go, a complex mix of pride and worry crossing his features. Still charging ahead without a plan, he muttered before taking off after him. Luffy bounded through the jungle, using his stretched arms to propel himself from tree to tree. The humming in his bones grew louder, pulling him forward like a magnet. Behind him, he could hear his crew and Shanks giving chase, but he didn't slow down. The jungle gave way to stone as he reached the base of the mountain. Ancient steps carved into the rock led upward, disappearing into the mist. Without hesitation, Luffy began to climb. He'd ascended halfway when the first attack came. A blur of motion and then pain as something slammed into his side, sending him crashing into the stone wall. Straw Hat Luffy, a cold voice said from the mist. Your journey ends here. A tall figure stepped into view, a man in the white uniform of CP0, his face hidden behind a porcelain mask. Luffy pulled himself from the rubble, grinning despite the blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "Oh yeah? Says who? The world government cannot allow pirates to obtain the Echo Shell." The agent's voice was emotionless. "Especially not the son of Dragon. Like I care what you guys want." Luffy's arms blackened with armament hockey as he charged. The CP0 agent moved with blinding speed, using Rokushiki techniques to evade. His counterattack struck like lightning, but Luffy's observation hockey warned him just in time to twist out of the way. More agents appeared from the mist, surrounding him. "Guess the warm-up's over," Luffy said, cracking his knuckles as his body began to steam. "Gear second." He vanished from sight, reappearing behind the first agent. Gum Gum jet pistol. The blow connected, sending the agent flying into the mountainside. But the others pressed in. A Shurgan pierced Luffy's shoulder. A Rankyaku sliced across his chest. He was outnumbered 5-1, each opponent a master of the Rokushiki arts. Gum Gum Gatling. Luffy's arms blurred as he unleashed a barrage of punches, forcing the agents back. But they were coordinating now, attacking in patterns designed to disorient him. A kick connected with his jaw, snapping his head back. Another agent appeared behind him, arm raised for a killing blow. Santoryu, Dragon Twister. A whirlwind of slashes tore through the air as Zoro arrived, three swords glinting in the mist. The attacking agent fell back, blood spraying from a dozen cuts. "Took you long enough." Luffy grinned through his bloody teeth. "Some of us can't stretch our arms to swing through the jungle," Zoro replied, positioning himself back-to-back with his captain. The rest of the crew arrived moments later, forming a protective circle around Luffy. CP0, Sanji observed, lighting a cigarette. "They're not holding back." Jinbe nodded grimly. "The world government must be desperate to send their strongest agents." The CP0 fighters regrouped, their blank masks betraying no emotion. "Surrender now," their leader commanded. "You're outmatched." Luffy laughed. "Funny. I was about to say the same to you guys." A new voice cut through the standoff. "I suggest you all stand down." Shanks walked calmly up the steps, his crew behind him. The air around him seemed to warp, a pressure building that made even the straw hat struggle to remain standing. "Red hair," the CP0 leader acknowledged. "This doesn't concern you." "Anything involving the Echo Shell concerns me." Shanks' voice was pleasant, but the pressure intensified. Several of the CP0 agents dropped to their knees, overcome by his conqueror's hockey. Luffy felt the pressure too, but he remained upright, pushing back with his own hockey. Their invisible forces clashed, creating a stillness in the air that felt like the moment before a tsunami. The CP0 leader made a quick gesture, and his remaining agents fell back into the mist. "This isn't over," he warned before disappearing. As the pressure dissipated, Luffy turned to face Shanks. "I could have handled them." "I know." Shanks smiled slightly. "But we don't have time for distractions. Look." He pointed up the mountain, where smoke continued to billow. "Someone's reached the temple already," Robin said, concern in her voice. Luffy nodded. "Then we better hurry." Shanks stepped forward. "Luffy, listen to me. The Echo Shell is dangerous beyond imagining. It doesn't just let you hear the voice of all things, it lets you corrupt it. The last time it was awakened, an entire civilization was wiped from history." "How do you know all this?" Nami asked suspiciously. Shanks' expression darkened. "Because my captain found it once. Roger heard what it could do and sealed it away again. He made me promise to ensure it remained hidden." "Then why didn't you destroy it back then?" Luffy challenged. "We tried. It can't be destroyed by normal means. But now," Shanks looked up at the mountain, "I've found a way." Luffy crossed his arms. I still say everyone deserves the chance to choose their own path. Even if that path leads to destruction for all. Shanks countered. If someone tries to use it for evil, I'll stop them. That's what being Pirate King means, having the freedom to protect what matters. Shanks studied him for a long moment. You've grown strong, Luffy. But strength isn't always enough. Let's find out. Luffy turned and began running up the steps again. This time, Shanks and his crew followed alongside the Straw Hats, an uneasy alliance formed against whatever awaited them at the summit. The temple emerged from the mist as they climbed, an ancient structure of black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its entrance gaped open like a wound, the massive doors blasted from their hinges. Someone got here first, Zoro observed, hand on his swords. Luffy nodded, the humming in his bones now a constant vibration that made his teeth chatter. I can feel it. The shell thing, it's calling out. They entered cautiously. The temple interior was a vast chamber supported by columns carved to resemble writhing sea creatures. At its center, a raised dais held a pedestal, and on that pedestal. The echo shell, Robin whispered, awe in her voice. It was smaller than Luffy had expected, about the size of his fist, spiraling inward like any normal seashell, but with an opalescent sheen that shifted colors as they watched. It pulsed with an inner light, beating like a heart. Don't touch it, Shanks warned, but his words barely registered with Luffy. The shell was speaking to him. Not in words, but in feelings. Images, connections. He could suddenly sense every living creature on the island, from the smallest insect to the largest sea king circling in the depths offshore. The sensation was overwhelming, intoxicating. He took a step toward it. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Straw Hat. The voice came from behind the pedestal. A figure stepped out, an elderly man with a crooked smile and eyes that glittered with malice. Despite his age, he moved with the fluidity of a fighter. Captain Soren, Shanks said, his voice tight. I thought you died with the rest of the Rock's pirates. The old man chuckled. Almost, red hair. But I've been patient, waiting for the moment the echo shell would be found again. He ran a gnarled finger along the edge of the pedestal. Do you have any idea what this little treasure can do? I know exactly what it does, Shanks replied. That's why I'm here to make sure it's destroyed once and for all. Soren laughed. Destroyed? Why would you waste such power? He turned to Luffy. You can feel it, can't you, boy? The connection to everything living. Imagine controlling it all, every sea king, every ancient weapon. Even the will of D itself could be harnessed. Luffy frowned. Nobody should control others like that. Says the boy who thinks he should be king, Soren mocked. At least be honest about your ambition. Pirate King doesn't mean controlling others, Luffy shot back. It means having the most freedom on the sea. And what is freedom without power? Soren gestured to the shell. This gives absolute power. The user becomes like a god. Shanks stepped forward. Enough talk. Step away from the shell, Soren. The old pirate's eyes hardened. Make me, boy. The air in the temple seemed to thicken as the two powerful pirates faced off. Shanks drew his sword with his single arm, the blade glinting in the pulsing light of the shell. Soren moved first, faster than his age suggested possible. His hand shot out, a wave of something that looked like black smoke streaming from his fingers. Devil fruit, Robin gasped as Shanks deflected the attack with his sword. Luffy didn't wait to see more. While everyone focused on the duel erupting between Shanks and Soren, he darted forward, making straight for the echo shell. Luffy, no. Nami shouted, but he was already at the pedestal. The shell's pulse quickened as his hand reached for it. The humming in his bones became a roar, drowning out everything else. His fingers touched the smooth surface, and the world exploded in sensation. Voices. Thousands, millions of voices flooding his mind at once. Every creature in the sea, on land, in the sky, all connected, all speaking at once. Luffy gasped, staggering back, the shell clutched in his hand. "I can hear everything," he whispered. The fighting around him paused as everyone turned to stare. The shell glowed brightly in his palm, its light seeping into his skin, up his arm, spreading throughout his body. "Put it down, Luffy," Shanks commanded, his voice cutting through the cacophony in Luffy's mind. "It's already taking hold of you." Luffy blinked, trying to focus. The voices were sorting themselves now, becoming clearer. He could distinguish between them, choose which to listen to. And more, he could feel his will extending outward through the connections, touching other minds. "Fascinating, isn't it?" Soren said, his battle with Shanks momentarily forgotten. "You can hear them all. And soon, you'll be able to command them." "Command them?" Luffy repeated, the idea both intriguing and repulsive. "The Sea Kings first," Soren continued. "Then the ancient weapons, Poseidon, Pluton, Uranus. They respond to the voice of all things. With the Echo Shell, you can find them, awaken them, control them." Shanks took a careful step toward Luffy. "That's not freedom, Luffy. That's the opposite. Think about what you're holding, a tool to enslave every living mind connected to the voice." Luffy looked down at the shell, its light now pulsating in rhythm with his heartbeat. The power it offered was immense. With it, he could protect everyone he cared about. Ensure no one ever suffered as Ace had. As Sabo had. He could reshape the world. But at what cost? "Nobody tells others what to do," he said finally, his fingers tightening around the shell. "Not the world government, not the celestial dragons, and not you either," Shanks finished for him. "That's what true freedom means." Luffy met his mentor's gaze, understanding dawning. "You're right." Soren snarled, the black smoke curling around his arms again. "Fools. If you won't use its power, I will." He lunged for Luffy. Shanks intercepted, his sword slashing through the smoke. Soren howled as the blade cut into his shoulder, but the attack didn't stop him. He crashed into Luffy, knocking him backward. The Echo Shell flew from Luffy's hand, arcing through the air. "No!" Soren and Shanks cried in unison. Time seemed to slow as the shell descended. It hit the stone floor with a sound like a bell being struck, then bounced, rolling toward the edge of a deep pit at the far side of the chamber. Everyone lunged for it at once. Luffy's arms stretched, fingers grasping. Soren dove across the floor. Shanks leapt forward. The shell teetered on the edge of the abyss, then fell. Without hesitation, Luffy threw himself after it, plunging into darkness. "Luffy!" His crew's voices echoed above him as he fell. The pit seemed bottomless, the walls rushing past as he plummeted. Below, he could see the faint glow of the shell, still falling. He streamlined his body, diving faster to catch up to it. His fingers closed around it just as he crashed into water. The shock of impact stunned him momentarily. Worse, as a devil fruit user, his strength immediately began to drain. The shell pulsed in his grip, connecting him to the sea life around him. He could feel them, fish, crabs, and larger presences circling in the depths. He was sinking fast, lungs already burning for air. The shell's glow illuminated the underwater cavern, revealing ancient carvings on the walls, warnings, stories, histories of what the Echo Shell had done before. As his consciousness began to fade, Luffy felt a presence approaching. A massive shadow moved through the water toward him. A Sea King. The enormous creature could easily swallow him whole. But instead, it nudged him gently, as if questioning. Luffy realized with a start that he was communicating with it through the shell, not controlling it, but connecting. With the last of his strength, he pushed a single thought toward the Sea King: help. The creature opened its massive jaws, but rather than eating him, it created a current that propelled Luffy upward. He shot through the water, bursting back into the air shaft he'd fallen through. Gum Gum Rocket. With his free hand, he managed to stretch up, grabbing the edge of the pit. He pulled himself out, gasping for breath, the echo shell still clutched tightly in his other hand. The temple chamber had transformed into a battlefield. Shanks and his crew were fighting Soren and what appeared to be his own hidden allies, older pirates with the same dark smoke abilities. The Straw Hats were holding their own, but the situation was chaotic. Luffy staggered to his feet, water streaming from his clothes. The shell's light had dimmed, but he could still feel its power pulsing through him. Luffy. Zoro spotted him first, relief evident in his usually stoic face. Soren whirled, his eyes fixing on the shell in Luffy's hand. "Give it to me, boy. You don't understand what you're holding." "I understand plenty," Luffy replied, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "I heard what it told me down there. I saw what it showed me." He looked at the shell, then at Shanks, who had paused in his fighting to watch. The red-haired captain's expression was unreadable. "This thing," Luffy continued, holding up the shell, "it doesn't control anything. It connects. That's what the voice of all things really is, not a weapon, but a bridge." Soren sneered. "Poetic, but useless. The shell amplifies will. With enough will, connection becomes control." "Maybe for you," Luffy replied. "But that's not my dream." He turned to Shanks. "You wanted to destroy it because you were afraid of what people would do with it. I get that now." Shanks nodded slowly. "But destroying it isn't the answer either," Luffy continued. "That's just another way of controlling what others can or can't do." "Then what do you propose?" Shanks asked. Luffy looked down at the shell, its light now pulsating in harmony with his heartbeat. "I'm taking it." "What?" The exclamation came from multiple voices at once. "Not to use it," Luffy clarified. "To protect it. To make sure nobody uses it to hurt others, but also to make sure it's not destroyed until we understand it better." He grinned suddenly. "Besides, it's kinda cool being able to talk to sea kings." Soren roared in fury, black smoke erupting around him like a storm. "I won't allow it. That power is mine." He charged, his followers close behind. Shanks stepped between them and Luffy. "You'll have to go through me first, Soren." "And us," Zoro added, the Straw Hats forming a protective circle around their captain. Luffy placed the shell carefully inside his vest, close to his heart. Its light shone through the fabric, illuminating him from within. "Let's finish this," he said, his fist blackening with haki as he stepped forward to stand beside Shanks. For the first time since he was a child, he and Shanks were fighting side by side. It felt right somehow, even knowing that this alliance was temporary, that soon they would have to face each other over the fate of the Echo Shell. But for now, they were united against a common enemy. Soren's smoke powers were formidable, creating weapons, shields, and even duplicates of himself. His followers used similar abilities, filling the temple with writhing darkness. "The shadow fruit," Robin called out as she crossed her arms, creating multiple limbs to grapple with the smoke constructs. "Soren must have a variation of it." Shanks moved like lightning, his sword cutting through the darkness with precision. Where his blade touched, the smoke dissipated, unable to reform. Luffy's fists tore through Soren's defenses, haki-infused blows connecting with solid impact despite the man's semi-corporeal state. Gum Red Hawk. His flaming fist punched straight through a smoke shield, catching Soren in the chest. The old pirate flew backward, crashing into a column. But he rose again, hate burning in his eyes. "You think you've won?" he snarled. "The world government is coming. CP0 was just the advance party. Soon this island will be swarming with their forces. You'll be trapped." As if on cue, the temple shook with a distant explosion. Dust rained from the ceiling. "They're bombarding the island," Jinbe realized. "They mean to sink it with all of us on it." Shanks cursed. My crew can hold them off, but not for long. He turned to Luffy. This isn't over between us. The echo shell can't remain in this world. Luffy nodded. I know. But that's a fight for another day. Another explosion rocked the temple, larger this time. Cracks spread across the ceiling. We need to get out of here, Nami urged. The whole place is coming down. Soren laughed maniacally. None of us are leaving. If I can't have the shell, no one will. He slammed his hands into the floor, black smoke pouring from them, seeping into the cracks, widening them. The temple groaned as its supports began to fail. Go. Shanks ordered his crew. Get to the ship. Luffy did the same, the straw hats running for the exit. But Soren wasn't done. With a final desperate lunge, he threw himself at Luffy, hands grasping for the glow beneath his vest. It's mine, he screamed. Luffy tried to dodge, but exhaustion slowed him. Soren's fingers closed around the fabric of his vest, tearing it open. The echo shell tumbled free, its light blinding in the dusty air. Time slowed again as both Luffy and Soren reached for it. Their hands collided, both touching the shell simultaneously. The light exploded outward, enveloping them both. Luffy felt Soren's will crashing against his through the connection, trying to dominate, to control. He pushed back, not with the desire to control, but with his vision of freedom. Enough. Shanks' voice cut through the light. His sword swung down, striking the shell between their hands. There was a sound like glass shattering, but infinitely louder. The light collapsed in on itself, then burst outward in a shockwave that threw everyone off their feet. When Luffy's vision cleared, he saw the echo shell lying on the floor between him and Soren. A hairline crack ran across its surface, the light within flickering erratically. What have you done? Soren whispered, horror in his voice. Shanks stood over the shell, his sword tip resting against it. What Roger couldn't. Found its weakness. He looked at Luffy. It can only be damaged when two opposing wills channel through it simultaneously. The temple shuddered again, more violently this time. Large chunks of ceiling began to fall. We need to go now. Nami shouted. Soren scrambled for the cracked shell. I can still use it. The power is still there. Shanks kicked him away. It's over, Soren. The shell is broken. Its power will fade. No. The old pirate lunged again, but this time, a massive piece of the ceiling fell directly on him. His scream cut off abruptly. Luffy stared at the shell, its light now flickering like a candle in the wind. He could still feel the connections, but they were fading, growing distant. The voices that had filled his mind were quieting. Luffy, come on. Zoro grabbed his shoulder. With a last look at Shanks, Luffy turned and ran with his crew, leaving the damaged echo shell behind. They raced down the temple steps as the structure began to collapse behind them. The island itself was shaking now, the bombardment from marine ships causing landslides all around them. They reached the jungle, using every ounce of their strength and skill to navigate the falling trees and opening chasms. Behind them, the temple finally gave way, disappearing into a cloud of dust and debris. You think Shanks made it out? Sanji asked as they ran. He's not dead yet, Luffy replied with certainty. Not until I get to fight him for real. They burst from the jungle edge just as a massive section of cliff fell into the sea. The Thousand Sunny was still in the cove, Brook, Frankie, and Usopp waving frantically from her deck. Jump! Frankie shouted as another explosion rocked the island. They leapt across the widening gap, landing on the Sunny's lawn. Without waiting for orders, Frankie engaged the coup de burst, launching the ship skyward just as the cove collapsed in on itself. From their aerial vantage point, they could see the island coming apart. Marine battleships circled like sharks, continuing their bombardment. And cutting through their formation, a ship with crimson sails made its escape. He made it, Luffy said, watching the red force sail away. He touched his chest where the echo shell had briefly rested, feeling strangely empty without its presence. What now? Nami asked as the Sunny descended toward open water. Luffy adjusted his straw hat, determination replacing the momentary melancholy. We keep going. Our adventure isn't over yet. And the echo shell? Robin inquired. Do you think it's truly lost? Luffy shrugged. Maybe. Maybe not. But that's not what matters. What matters is what we do with the freedom we have, Jinbe finished for him, understanding in his eyes. Luffy grinned. Exactly. Now, which way to the next island? And Sanji, I'm starving. As the Sunny sailed away from the sinking Whisper Island, Luffy stood at the figurehead, looking ahead. The encounter with Shanks had been brief, unexpected, and had ended with neither victory nor defeat. But it had changed something inside him. Next time they met, it wouldn't be as teacher and student. It would be as equals, two captains with different visions of what freedom truly meant. He touched his straw hat, Shanks' most precious gift. I'm still not ready to give this back, he murmured. But I'm getting closer. In the distance, the red force was a diminishing crimson speck on the horizon. Luffy could almost imagine Shanks standing at its stern, looking back at him. Their paths had diverged today, but they would cross again. And when they did, Luffy would be ready to show his mentor just how far he'd come, not just in strength, but in understanding what it truly meant to be the Pirate King. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.